So firstly, we're speaking just a week after the news broke of the sad death of the great Sean Locke. It's unbelievable that we're speaking about him in the past tense, but what are your defining memories of working with him?
Well, Sean was basically one of my heroes before I met him, and he still was while I had the pleasure of working with him. I ended up working for many years with Diane Morgan over our shared love of Sean Locke. We were both word perfect on his shows, and he meant a hell of a lot to all comedians, I think, because he was one of our all-time greats, and I feel honoured to have had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with him and get to know him and become friends with him. And it's been a hard thing to take. It's hit everyone very, very hard, and it's a huge loss and tragic. Obviously for his family and friends and everyone. I've had messages from all over the world and people saying, how much he meant to them and how brilliant he was, and it was all utterly deserved. And he genuinely is one of our all-time greats. And I think I've realised people are now finding more and more of his stuff and sort of realising, most people realise, even more people are realising just how amazing he was. And terrible. And, I think it's going to hit us in ways, because I was talking to someone who worked with him as well. And when you are a comedian, you go months without working with people, and then you see them because you're working on a job. So I think it's going to hit us again when next time we would have all been together. Yeah. So I think it's going to be but very, very sad.
Yeah. So sorry to start with such.
No. It's okay. I've found it really nice talking about him, and kind of absolutely. But
makes it easier.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes it a bit more real, I think.
How do you think he'll be remembered?
I think he will be remembered as one of the all-time greats, and as I said, and I think I've been watching lots of interviews with like people who are much closer to him than me, like Harry Hill and Bill Bailey, and they sort of said that they said it much more concisely than me, but basically he was a comedian's comedian. Basically, and deep down, I think that's what you all want to be, the one where people go, he sets the standard, and you would watch him and you would kind of go, well, I personally would go, I still do, what would Sean think of that bit of material? Could I do it in front of him? Would he roll his eyes at me, or would he laugh? And it raised the bar. And Nick Helms said it many years ago. He was talking about, I think he was interviewed and saying, who are your favourite comedians? And he just started talking about Sean and said, basically, it doesn't matter if no one else laughs, but if Sean did, you could be in a theatre of 2,000 people and no one laughs, but you hear Sean laugh. That's better than the other 2,000. And that's what he says. I'm stealing from him, but I remember that stuck in my head. I was like, yeah, that's what he did. He was the best. So you kind of you wanted to make him laugh, not anyone else, really. So that's quite telling to what genius he was. And I think as time goes on, people will remember him with Peter Cook and people like that. I think the all-time greats.
I suppose, as is the most popular and successful route into comedy in the modern era, you started your career doing open mic nights in your local pub.
Yeah.
In your opinion, how important are local open mics to discovering new and emerging talent?
It's impossible, isn't it? I think it's impossible to kind of for anyone to get anywhere, because when I started watching stand-up, I remember going to the Comedy Store. That's where I thought those big sort of clubs were just where stand up was. And I remember looking at it. I remember so clearly who was on those, Paul Tonkinson and Ricky Grover and those guys. And I remember just thinking, how the hell do they do it? You know, like, hey, because there's 400 people in a room and it's Saturday night and it's just looked impossible. And it is impossible if you just stood up there and went up in front of 400 people. So you go to these, and then I found out there was this, as you said, this open mic circuit. When I started, there was a thing in Time Out that would list all the gigs, and they'd have a telephone number, and you'd phone up and you go, can I get on, and blah, blah, blah. And I started going to all these and realizing that there was 10 people in a room and you could go up and you could just do anything and it didn't matter. And you do, you know, I guess you do that for, well, I was probably on the open mic circuit a lot longer than other people, but you sort of do it for about 6 years and it doesn't matter. You just learn how to do it, and you can fail and fail and fail and fail and get better and better and better. And without that, I don't know how you start. And obviously with something like the pandemic and a lot of these clubs obviously falling away, it is a worry. And it is like, well, how does someone get better? It's like anything. You know, if you're a 100-meter sprinter, you don't start in the Commonwealth Games. Do you know what I mean? You've got to start somewhere. So they're really important. And I think there's a great time as well when you're doing comedy, because you just got all your little mates. And when we started, there's only a few gigs, so you just see the same few people over and over again. So it's a lovely time as well. And it's the time when you make most friends. And in comedy, we call it what year? Like a school year.
Yeah.
So when you started, I started in the same school year as Kevin Bridges and Sarah Millican and Alistair Green and people like that. And we all that's our school year, because that was the time we all were doing that. We started the open mic together. Yeah. So important. But yeah, hope, you know, I think, and there was a lot less comedians when we were doing it, so it was kind of easy to get on. I hear about how there's 10 times more people, and I go, God, they must have to really battle to get gigs. But yeah, it's all part. It does sort of sift out the people that don't really want to do it, though, because it's so hard. Because you're fighting for gigs.
Survival of the fittest.
Yeah, it really is. And you go, well, how badly do you want this? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, really important.
Yeah. In 2006, you won the Hackney Empire New Act of the Year.
Oh my God, I did, yes.
How did this give you a springboard onto which to progress through the comedy industry?
Do you know what? These competitions are fine. They're great. They are, you know, it's a lovely thing to win. But I think, honestly, they're slightly detrimental, if I'm totally honest. That, you know, it does give you a little lift, because people go, oh, he must be decent. But they're like, comedy isn't really a competition. It's sort of like, I think because only one person wins, it knocks a lot more people than it raises one person's spirits, if you know what I mean. And yeah. and for every, you know, there's lots of competitions. There's the Hackney Empire thing. There's So You Think You're Funny, Laughing Horse, a few others, and they're great. But there's, for every great person that won it, there's another 100 great ones that didn't win it. Yeah. And so I don't wholeheartedly agree with them, because I think it's not a race, and people find their feet at different times. And so, you know, a competition, you have to find your feet in the first couple of years, because you do them all in the first couple of years, basically. And if you haven't found your feet or your voice or whatever, then you don't do very well in them, and you think something might thinking, oh, hold on, I crap. And that's not what it's about. It's about kind of just getting better. And I also feel that about the Edinburgh Fringe with the awards and stuff. I think it rewards very few and kind of gives everyone else a bit of a kick in the teeth. And I don't think that's what it's about. I think it's about kind of taking a show up and kind of going, this is what I do. And some people like it, some people won't. And that's comedy, you know, like, if you said who's the best comedian in the world, everyone would have a different answer. So there is no competition winner.
Yeah. and you can't cater for everyone. Like you say, everyone's got a different taste, a different opinion, a different, style of comedy that some people might like. And
absolutely. And I think it's always, when it's really, I'm quoting someone else, but when, I can't remember who said it, but there's, especially online, and you must see this online, where people go, oh, that comedian's rubbish. And they go, no, I go, they're not rubbish. They're just not to your taste.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, I guarantee you, anyone who's got to a certain standard is not rubbish. They're just not your taste, because it's sort of, the open mic is full of different abilities, let's be honest. But then when you get further and further along, and if people have managed to get through to that point, they're not rubbish, they're just not your cup of tea. Mm-hmm. So when people go, oh, this person's shit or whatever, and you go, well, that's what you think. That's not a fact. That's just and that's fine. Yeah. The fact you put it online, I find a bit weird. But no, it's not sort of, no one's everyone. You don't want to be everyone's taste as well. Trust me, you don't want to be, you want 50% of people to not get it. That's where you want to be, definitely. Because then that's my opinion again, which is not fact at all. But in my opinion, I think you want to baffle a few people.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Where do we get to? Typically, comedy is all about creating a character to project onto an audience, which is something you have achieved with great effect.
Oh, shut up, you.
when honing a character or alter ego, what's the process which one has to go through?
It is really about finding your voice, and I don't think anyone really sets out to find their voice or their character. I think it's a really long journey, I think, because I think it's usually like a seed of something that's in you, and then you sort of let that part of you sort of flourish and embrace it. And what happened for me when I found my voice, my persona, my character, whatever you want to call it, everything became easier. I had an angle, and there's a lot. I listen to a lot of interviews and things, because I'm still a comedy fan, and a lot of comedians they talk about kind of how some comedians have almost like a sitcom character, and it's there, and you can like I guess like someone like Rob Beckett, he's a cheeky chappy idiot, not quite naive, not quite getting the world, blah blah blah. He's not that in real life. He is, he's from South London, but he's not an idiot. But he's taken the idiot side of his personality, because we're all bright and idiotic in different ways, and he's created his character. And now all the jokes have a direction. They all have a clarity. They all have parameters. So, there's all comedians do this. They think of an idea and they write something and they go, but it just doesn't work for my character. And I write that all the time. I think so all the time. And I might talk about, I might have an idea about a relationship, about being in a relationship. I mean, something about me and my other half. But my character is not in a relationship, has never had any success with women, so I can't write that. I can't say that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because it doesn't fall under my character's world. And I'm sure people like, Tom Allen and Rob Beckett and those guys, they come up with stuff and you go, yeah, but that will make, like Rob, for example, will go, yeah, but that will make you look clever.
Yeah.
So he couldn't write that. He must come up with all the stuff, but his angle has always got to be sort of like naive idiot, yeah. Sort of Jack the Lad kind of bit of a Del boy. So if he has an idea that you go, well, how does he know about that? He can't write it. Yeah, no. So but it does give you an angle on every subject. Like when I do these different shows and stuff, and they say, oh, they want you to talk about this, I've got an angle. I have an angle on the world. And it's usually an upside down angle. My friend Jarlath Regan sort of described how I sort of do, like observational material is basically about you observe something and the rest of the world goes, oh yes, I get, I do that or I see that. He said, it's kind of what I do is observational material that no one recognizes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of so my worldview is so skewed, but I think everyone's gonna have the same worldview as me, and I thought that was quite a good way of describing the angle.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, we get that. Yeah, Josh is like a keen comedy historian, if you say.
Oh right, yeah.
So he's always looking through the years and comparing back then to now. And he was just saying, back then, if you like created a character, you were deemed an actor. But nowadays, if you create a character per se, it's just like an expansion of yourself, really, your being. It's just another. Yeah.
I think like when you do characters, because when you're acting and stuff, it is you find you do a few different characters. I do feel like there still has to be a seed of something in you to expand. For me personally, like I sometimes think if someone sort of says, "Oh, do you want to think about playing this character?" I go, I don't know if I can, because there's no part of me that has that starting thread. Do you know what I mean? Like, if there was a character that was quite brash character and very verbose, and I was just like, oh, I don't know what part of me to start from. So I really feel like like these characters have to start from something in you. But I think, as you say about an actor, I guess when it comes to the character you mainly do on stage, it doesn't feel like acting. It does become it for that time. It is you, which is quite weird. Yeah. You think differently for that hour. It's a very strange thing. It isn't really acting. It's just a different mindset. So I totally agree. It's sort of because you are improvising, and you are, which we are, we're improvising now, aren't we? But in our own minds, if you know what I mean. It's just switching your mindset. So I don't really see it as acting in that sense when I'm just doing stand up or on a show being the persona. So it's acting when you're given a script and you're playing a character and you're doing it word for word.
Your first major television credit came in 2010 when you played next door neighbor Dan in the BBC Three sitcom Him and Her.
Yes.
What did this teach you about the workings of a sitcom, which you were able to hone years later in Afterlife?
Him and Her was so. I do mean it, so lucky for me because I knew nothing about acting and anything of this world, and I got dropped into a situation with some like incredibly talented people. And looking back, I don't know if I'd have the guts to do it now, but there was no sort of easing me in. It was just get on with it. And I was working with Russell Tovey, Sarah Soleimani, Kerry Howard, Ricky Champ, Camille Kajuri, and Richard Latson, the director, the writer, Stefan Godolewski, who's won countless BAFTAs. I just got dropped into, it was all by chance. I just got dropped into this incredible show with these incredible people and just had to get on with it. And I think like in at the deep end is terrifying, but it was just, but no one was sort of, I don't know, I think a bit of me was like going, well, they'll know I haven't done anything. So they'll sort of go, okay, so what you do now is, but it was really just in at the deep end and getting on with it. And I think I fell in love with, I'd always wanted to be involved in a sitcom. Sitcoms were my way into comedy, and to be dropped into the middle of one kind of was just crazy. And when I say lucky, to be dropped into the middle of one that ended up winning a BAFTA and being such a hit, and and so well respected. And Stefan, the writer's become a very good friend of mine, but I was always a fan of his. He was in a sketch group called The Cowards. I was with Tim Key, Tom Basden, and Lloyd Wolf, and I was such a big fan of theirs. But I didn't know to what extent Stefan's writing ability was. I just didn't know, and I was offered this audition. I didn't know this at the time, but Stefan had seen me in Edinburgh and had wanted me to play the part, but he didn't tell the director, Richard Latson, this. So I auditioned. I'd never done that character before, so luckily I didn't know, and luckily I got the part because otherwise that would have been embarrassing. And then I did 4 years of being involved in this incredible show, and I got to learn right in the middle. I used to look at Russell and go, Russell Tovey, who played Steve, and Sarah, who played Becky. Like the thing, I was like, I don't know what you're doing. You don't seem to be doing anything, but they were doing so much, and I'd just be sort of baffled. And then I learned that, and the director used to give me this note. Looking back, was basically, you're too big, but just think the emotion, think the thought of the scene. Don't sort of show it, and on all these things. And I realised that obviously Sarah and Russell knew this already, and then I was sort of playing catch up a bit, sort of going, "Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I didn't know." And then I feel like honestly, I feel like once we got going, I found my feet, and hopefully I sort of caught up a little bit. But yeah, I was just what a way to learn something. And also with acting, I did. I'd never done any acting, but I was working with Diane Morgan on her sketches, and she taught me quite a lot about acting and kind of that kind of thing. So I just got really lucky. I just have to, Diane's an incredible actor, and we just met on the circuit, and then I'm suddenly working with her, who's obviously gone on to prove to the world how brilliant she is. And I just kept getting surrounded by these brilliant people. So you just absorb all this stuff, and so that's why I got very, very lucky. I just got dropped into a world with these brilliant people, and I was like, wow, that was lucky.
In 2012, you became Rachel Riley's assistant in 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown.
I did, yes.
Surrounded by some of the most comical minds in Britain, how difficult is it to stamp your own character on the show?
Well, you're absolutely right. It's baffling who's been on that show, like over the years. It's just like some absolutely brilliant people, but it's quite a generous show. It's a very generous show, quite a generous show. It's unfair. Like it never, no one fights for their place. It's quite, there's a lot of respect. So I was very lucky again, where I was sort of given a slot. So I was sort of given a moment in the show to do whatever I wanted, which, and I worked with there's a company called Zeppatron who are so generous with their time and their patience and their, when they're working with me, because I come up with these ideas and they were just like is it 2012 we did the first one, did you say? So in the 9 years, they've never said no to me to an idea. They've just gone, let me, and they were just, and I'm very good friends with the producers now, and I would watch their eyes kind of their eyes widen as I tell them the idea, and I'll be like, oh God, this is the month where they're going to say, look, just sod off. And they would always come back and go, okay, so this is what we found out. And I'd be like, oh my God, they just work so hard. They're so generous with their sort of time. And because one time I did a thing where I was a magician and I drowned my assistant. My magician's assistant, Fabio. I drowned him in a tank of water. I had no idea, but I found out afterwards that they had to reconfigure the whole studio because of having however many gallons of water in a studio is incredibly dangerous because there's so much wiring. But they didn't tell me any of this. They just reconfigured all the wiring, and they spent hours and hours, and they filled out all this paperwork, and I had no idea. They just gave their, they just do everything to make the show as good as it is. And then so I was really lucky that working with them, and the space that the comedians give each other is very generous. I don't, if you've seen the show, you'll notice that the comedians get behind the other comedians. They laugh. There's no sort of like trying to trip each other up, so it's a really lovely space to be funny. And in the last sort of 5 or 6 years, they've really been bringing on newer comedians and giving them this platform, and it's really, it's a very generous show, I think. And I've been, I can't believe it's 9 years, dear God.
I was going to ask, just based on what you said, did they ever say no to you about anything? Because some of the things, when I'm watching it, I think, what is he doing? How's he allowed to do any of this? And was there any times when they actually turned around and said, nah, that's probably not the right thing for the show? Although,
no. That because there are issues on just kind of it's silly things, but like if you talk about like, and I've become very kind of, I have an understanding of the sensibilities of channels and stuff. Like if you've got a joke with a weapon, for example, like if you've got a gun or something, there's obviously connotations that come with that. But sometimes my brain wouldn't go, well, they'll just remind me that might be upsetting for people. And then I change the idea rather than go, yeah, but I want a big gun. It's like there are times where they've just gone, well, let's think about people's feelings. And you go, oh, good point. But little things like that, but never like, I want to drown my assistant. Or,
that's perfectly fine.
Or want to be shot in the groin by a paintball gun. It's those sort of things they just make happen. And TV's so health and safety heavy, so they do so much work. And I am never not appreciative. I hope they do realise that, because I just know how hard they work. And we do have some baffling conversations though. I have, they sort of send me pictures of blow up dolls, which one do you want, or for whatever the idea is, whatever. So we have these quite baffling work related conversations, and there is every time there's a moment we go, oh Lord, what are we talking about?
Josh was just asking, do you kind of have to give a heads up to Rachel Riley anytime you want to do anything, or is she quite
she's up with? She's a great sport, and what I tend to do, like I hide my bits from everyone because I like to surprise everyone. But if there's a bit I need her to do something specific for, then we'll have a conversation. But I'll only give her. There was a bit where I played a stuntman and she smashed a bottle over my head, and but in that show, that was the only bit I told her. Like I basically said, you know, when I turn my back on you, can you smash it? But the rest of it, she didn't know because I want her to. I try and write it so if I'm kind of abusing her in some way, I want her to naturally react to it, because I think it's just more fun. And the same with Susie or John or Sean or whoever at the time. You just want them to be part of the fun. You know what I mean? Like it's because I always enjoyed trying to make them laugh as well.
Yeah.
So the production would make a real effort to hide everything from them. They'd never be in the studio and rehearsal. Would be a big screen round what I'm doing, so they'd get the full impact like the audience.
Are there any new episodes in the pipeline of that?
There are. We've just recorded another load, and I've got a few more ideas that I haven't used yet. So yeah, there's. I should know when they're coming out. I think they must be soon because they take a bit of editing, the countdown ones, because there's quite a lot of stuff in them. So they always take a bit of time to edit. They must be coming out soon, actually. Yeah, I make a wally of myself again. So
that's what we like to hear. Surrealism has always been an important part of the British comedy landscape, from the Goons to Python to the League of Gentlemen to the Mighty Boosh. Mm-hmm. So therefore, I'd be interested to know your comedy inspirations and how do you think your brand of surrealism contributed to the preservation of the British tradition?
It's funny, like talking about Sean, he was someone that I'm definitely influenced by, because it was sort of, I never saw myself as surreal. I just saw it as sort of taking a different angle, and then you get quoted as it. And like I never thought of Sean as surreal. I just thought of it as having an angle that I always thought with Sean used to have a joke about, like, he'd do a bit that would be so balmy or whatever, and then he'd say, "Oh, I don't have a lot of material stolen." And because it was, you can't steal the bizarre stuff, it's just impossible. But I always took that as, oh, there's a joke that no one else could do. And I thought that was a really nice, that's something I took on board. I was like, oh, if you can write something that no one else could come up with, then that's a good starting point. Because there's a lot, I love mainstream comedians. I think it sort of has a negative connotation, but I don't think it is. I think if you can hit the nail on the head and go, when you're gardening, this is what it's like McIntyre and people like that. So hard to do, but then it's such a tightrope, because sometimes it can be quite hack, or someone else has done it. So it's a very hard thing to navigate. Whereas what I like doing is going, I've got this starting point. I've got this starting point that I feel is not a starting point someone else would take. And I guess that has manifested itself into, I guess, being slightly surreal to people, because they go, well, why the hell is he talking about that? But I try and ground it like Sean always did. It was never completely just off the wall. Yeah. It was so grounded in stuff. It would end up with him being chased in a hotel room by Madonna in the dark or whatever. But it started somewhere relatable. Do you know what I mean? And so Sean, particularly on the surreal, I did love the Mighty Boosh. They were just fun. They were really good fun. Vic and Bob goes without saying. But I think my inspirations growing up were more sort of Billy Connolly and Fawlty Towers and the two Ronnies and, you know, real joke people. That was where my first love was, rather than, and then I, as I sort of like yourself, Josh, when you absorb a lot of comedy, I think your taste kind of changes a bit, and you want that more challenging kind of comedy, which Sean brought, I think.
And even
I got the first bit, but not the second bit. Josh was just saying about even the two Ronnies were a bit surreal.
Yeah, they really were. It was because they were great ideas. You know, that I think that a lot of surreal stuff is just great ideas. Like One Foot in the Grave. You ever watch, which I'm sure you've watched. It's just got some really surreal ideas in this very mundane looking framework. But, you know, they've got like lampposts coming through, you know, falling through the bedroom window, and like, you know, and that's how they go to bed. And, you know, it's just these, I think really good surreal can be hidden as well, where people don't know that they're kind of being given surreal comedy. Do you know what I mean? Like they go, oh, I get this. And you go, well, because really, like something like One Foot in the Grave would take you little tiny steps to this point, which is so surreal that you haven't noticed you've gone from normal to utterly bizarre in half an hour. Because there's so many little pigeon steps. And at all of those steps, you go, yeah, I believe that. You know, like he gets himself in such a position where you go, yeah, no, each step is believable. So then you look at where point A is, where point Z is, and you go, how the hell did we get there? And it's such a surreal show. You should, you know, if you haven't watched it for a while, go back and go, my God, that's weird.
And it was very dark.
And it was very dark as well.
It really was. Yeah, it really was. I don't know if you remember the pilot about it's about him getting fired by losing his job to was it to like almost like a calculator or something, and it starts off with a man sort of depressed by his life, and you're like, God, yeah, it's a pretty dark start to a long.
It was a robot.
It was a robot. That's right. Yeah, your knowledge of you. I'm clearly preaching to the converted about One Foot in the Grave. I'm so sorry.
You could ask him anything, Jesus. The last 4 years. You know?
I feel like this interview is around the wrong way.
In 2019, you appeared as Jeffrey in the Netflix series Sex Education.
Oh, yes, I did, yes.
As a comedian, how excited are you about the limitless world of online entertainment?
Well, online's brilliant. Like, it's just this, I've really got this bug about DIY in our industry. Basically, the ability of anyone to kind of make something is really exciting. Like, I think I was talking to my friend about it yesterday, about something like a podcast, and just not having to basically go through any filters is really exciting. Like, I love radio comedy, but it's hard, you know, it's a lot of people wanting to get on Radio 4, basically. And, you know, now anyone can, you know, like, we've all got laptops and it's all got editing software on it. And you can just make whatever you want and put it out. My friend David Earl and myself, who I write with, every morning we do a, we're not doing it at the moment because we're having a break, but we do a half an hour podcast every morning where we just talk inane nonsense, and we put it out every morning, and that's what we do. It's just this sort of outlet for us, and all these different things you can do without these gatekeepers saying you can't do that. Like I've got friends who have grown their profile by their online videos. Prime example is someone from my year and my comedy year, Alistair Green. I've known he's brilliant for years. He's possibly the funniest person I know. But then he's found this audience have found him because he's making these brilliant videos every few days, and his profile has just grown, and that was just from him just being brilliant, putting stuff out, and people going, because the public are geniuses. They can see good people. No worries. They could. Is there a? Oh, is this a? I really want to know what that is now.
It's just our landline phone. So.
Oh, right. I thought it was much more exciting than that.
No, not.
Yeah. So Alistair's got this. He makes these videos, puts them out, and as I say, the audience, they're geniuses, and they go, "That's good. I'll follow him." It's one click, and then they're in each other's lives, and it's just brilliant. And you can just see how, especially like younger comedians, they're much more tech savvy, so they can just there's no gatekeepers going, you can't do it.
Yeah.
And especially with something through the pandemic, and people sort of making all this stuff online and putting it out there. This if there's good stuff, it'll get found. And I did myself and Diane Morgan did some videos a few years ago, and Ricky Gervais saw them, and that's how I got on his radar, and Diane got on his radar. And then a few years later, we're working together. I did some stuff on Derek, and then we both did Afterlife, and that was from doing some stuff online and just putting it out there. And that it's just really exciting for people. You can be seen a lot easier now.
Yeah. You touched upon our next question, actually. So yes, but the question's about Afterlife.
Oh yes.
Yeah, the relationship between Tony and your character Pat is one of the most interesting, enduring parts of the show. As an actor, how difficult is it to portray such a crucial character so innocently?
Well, it's when Ricky sort of spoke to me about the character, it was started off as just like a postman who winds him up, and then it sort of grows in the doing of it. Do you know what I mean? In the first series, it was a bit more surface. Do you know what I mean? I'd wind him up, and that was it was sketches, and then Ricky sort of found something in their relationship and sort of basically made them more in touch with each other and have a stronger relationship, and that relationship grew. So I think Ricky would agree it was more of an organic thing. Sometimes, like some directors, they kind of get you in a room and you play off each other for ages, and then I can see why you do that now, because we sort of did that on screen. Do you know what I mean? And then Ricky went, "Oh, look, that's really working. Let's take it a bit deeper."
Yeah,
which he's done. And then in the new series again, which is coming out in I think October, November. So it was quite organic, I think. And the hardest thing working with Ricky is not laughing, because he pricks around so much. Yeah. And I think one of his gifts is he makes it a very fun set, so everyone's very relaxed. And I think that gets the best out of people, because when you're enjoying it, you kind of let go more. And that's one of his skills. Is it looks like he's just. I always thought, oh, he's just messing about, and then I realised that it's a combination of messing about, but also he wants everyone to enjoy it, and he wants everyone to enjoy it because they'll be better.
Yeah,
So it's actually, that makes sense.
Yeah. And looking back at your career, what's your proudest achievement?
My proudest achievement. Oh, I don't let myself think things like that. The thing I'm most proud of, honestly, is so pathetic, but is having the balls to go for it, try and make comedy a living. When I left my job, I was very proud of that because I hadn't really. I'm not one of those people. I'm not like a risk taker, and I was like, it's something I really want to do. It's really, really hard to make a living in this, to even to be involved in the industry is really hard. But I took a punt, and then I got to do all these different things with these great people. And I sometimes think, oh my God, if I hadn't had the balls to leave my day job, I wouldn't get to do this. And sometimes when I'm, like all jobs, I'm a bit like, oh, bloody hell, this and that. I do sometimes go, hold on.
Yeah.
You had an office job however many years ago, and you could still be doing that. And then I go, oh yeah, this is cool. So I think the fact having the guts to sort of give it a go, I'm very, very proud of, and all the other things that have happened along the way, I'm very proud of. But I think because they wouldn't have happened if I hadn't sort of, for once in my life, had some balls to go, no, I'll take, because we all get used to a kind of way of life where you go, oh, I'm safe, I'm, I've got a roof over my head, I've got food on the table. But I took all that away, which looking back probably gave my parents a heart attack. But yeah, that I guess it's quite a boring answer, but it's the truth.
Do you pinch yourself every now and then just to be like, I'm working with your face today, I'm working with someone else today,
you definitely do. And I think if you don't, you're a bit of a fibber, because it's like I've just been filming a sitcom that myself and David Earl wrote, and I was just stood in this field, and there's all these different departments, all sort of, like hundreds of people doing all different stuff, and I was like, oh my God, because I was just sat here with David writing a few months earlier, just in my little office, and now there's all this stuff going on, and you're like, oh my God, how did that happen? So yeah, definitely, and and then as you say, working with Ricky and Sean and all these other amazing people, I go, what the hell, that's weird.
And finally, what's next for Joe Wilkinson?
What is next? I have as I've just told you, we've just filmed a second series of our sitcom, The Copfields. That's just finished filming. It's editing at the moment. David and the director, Simon Hind, are editing that, and I'm looking at bits and bobs of that as we go along. That should be out in October, November. The last few weeks, I've been kind of decompressing after 10 weeks of filming, because they're long days with lots of learning lines and stuff. And I was just kind of, oh God, didn't realize how tired I was. Yeah. And then now I don't quite know really. I've got a few things booked in, little jobs here, but I'm not rushing back to doing loads at the moment, because it's been such a busy year with writing and filming and so on. So I think my missus might have to kick me up the arse to get me writing again, I think.
Oh, what was it like filming without Bobby Bull?
It was like I was saying about Sean earlier. I think because you go through these chunks of time where you don't see people, and then when you're meant to see them, that's when it hits you. And we had I remember so clearly where I was when Lucy Dixit phoned me and told me the awful news. And our sitcom was set in the Isle of Wight, and I was actually in the Isle of Wight writing. I just happened to be on holiday, but I was writing as well. And I was looking out to sea, and I got told, and I was like, I was obviously devastated, and I remember just going on like just worst possible news. But I think it hit me harder when we got to set again, and one of the makeup ladies, Lisa, she got really upset, and I think it sort of hit us then, and it was really hard. It was harder when because I wasn't seeing Bobby when he passed away. I was meant to see him the following few months. So that's when it hit me, and we had to, it was a real gut punch. It was so tragic, and I don't know if you remember, but the outpouring for Bobby was unbelievable.
Yeah, massive.
It was just like, they did the tribute show, and Lee Max said in the tribute show, he said it because he was in Not Going Out as well, obviously, and Lee said something, and it was like, he said, we just, he'd known Bobby for a few years now, but he'd still go, oh, that's Bobby Ball. In his head, he'd go, that's Bobby Ball. And I was exactly the same. And Diane, who one day lent, because I really hit it off with Bobby. Like, I really hit it. I was like, oh my God, I think I'm friends with Bobby Ball. We just really hit it off. And Diane tapped me on the shoulder one day and went, can you imagine if you're a kid and someone had leant over and said, you're going to be mates with Bobby Ball one day? I just went, oh my God. It was, it was really, it was a terrible, especially to COVID, just seemed so cruel, and it was only a few months later that they announced that we had to jab, and it was tough. And Gregor came in, and that was Gregor Fisher is now playing his part, and he plays it so brilliantly, but different, which is great. There's no sort of comparison, and it must have been hard for Gregor to come in and kind of replace a legend, but he did it brilliantly. But we had to be sensitive to Gregor in these situations, and Bobby's wife Yvonne, and there was a lot of sensitivity needed.
Yeah, of course.
At that time, and hopefully we navigated it in such a way that no one felt let down or saw it anyway. But so fingers crossed. But I'll miss Bobby a lot. Yeah.
Whoa, tell me.
Oh yeah. Sorry to lead this interview on such a downer.
No, not at all. God, no. As I say, I love talking. I've loved talking about Sean and Bobby there.
Yeah, we started on a heavy one.
Yeah. It would have been weirder not to talk about them, to be honest with you. There's been two. I got to work with two of my heroes, but after both of their passings, I just went back and I watched so much stuff, and I guess it's a bit of you want to do it, but also it's just sort of, I guess, a bit of coating, isn't it, and so on. But both of them, I was just so brilliant, and just watching all this stuff, and there's so much of it and so much brilliant stuff. I was like, wow, it was just such a sort of, I don't know, not that, it's weird if while someone's alive to sort of be going, I was going to watch all your stuff. Can you take people for granted when they're there and you're going, God, I'm just working with these amazing people, and then they pass and you go, God, look at what you did, and look at all this stuff and this joy. And it was just, two people to work with like that is, that alone is makes me very lucky.
Every day for the last week, just social media, there's just clips of Sean and all this best bits just popping up, and I watch it every day, and you do forget little bits and pieces. Just genius. Yeah,
genius. There's one that I recommend everyone finds online, which is Rectum of the Year. Did you see that?
Yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah, yeah.
It's perfection. It's perfection.
Yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant.
Even the carrot game.
Oh, the carrot game. What a genius.
Yeah.
Watch the carrot game, everyone.
Yeah. It's incredible. Well, I think that's it, isn't it? Yeah.
I hope that was useful, guys.
That's amazing. Yeah. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your break.
Not at all.
You know.
Josh, I must apologise. I was all over the shop when you contacted me and was in the middle of the filming, so I'm sorry it took so long. I do apologise, mate.
You're not
Yeah, don't worry. You're not the slowest person to respond. We have people that have taken 2-3 years.
Oh, okay. I feel better, but I do apologise. But
we appreciate your time. You're a busy man.
Not at all. Not at all. Look, it's lovely meeting you both.